I, Evan Johnson, thought I was enjoying a peaceful moment with my coffee in the quiet of the early morning, unaware of the impending storm. After 25 years of marriage, the sound of our children's laughter filled our home, yet their absence left an uncomfortable quietness. However, nothing could have prepared me for the startling revelation that broke the silence. My wife, Audrey, was entangled in a torrid affair with a man she called Stallion. As their passionate cries and the creaking of bed springs invaded my sanctuary, I stumbled upon a scene that turned my world upside down. Armed with evidence and a Smith & Wesson, I navigated through the betrayal, plotting revenge that unfolded in the most unexpected ways. I should be at work, but instead, I find myself inexplicably calm, sitting at the kitchen table, savoring a freshly brewed cup of coffee. This moment of tranquility is exactly what I needed to find my inner peace. It's a practice I used to indulge in regularly when our children were young. I would wake up an hour earlier than the rest of the household, relishing in the serenity of those quiet moments. It became somewhat of a passion for me. I have been happily married for 25 years, well, at least I was happy a few hours ago. We have 4 children, and the youngest one left home just last year. My wife has been struggling with the emptiness syndrome, as she calls it. I suggested she take up a pastime to help her cope. She started doing that, I think, approximately an hour ago, but I didn't know he went by Stallion. She called him that all the time. "Go for it, dude. Please give it to me," she shouted. It's strange that our beloved coffee aroma hasn't drawn her attention away from her new interest. Normally, when I make coffee, Audrey, my wife, would rush downstairs even before it was ready. But she has been preoccupied lately, so perhaps that's why she hasn't noticed the enticing scent yet. "Tell me how much better I am than your spineless, weakling husband," she passionately expressed. "Oh my God, you're so much better." As I sit here, I notice my trusty old Model 59 Smith & Wesson resting on the red oak kitchen counter, loaded and ready. I contemplate whether to engage the safety mechanism, ultimately deciding it's better to be cautious, just in case. After all, her boyfriend is a police officer. How do I know this? When I arrived home earlier than expected, I found his uniform and comb-stained buns scattered across the living room floor, alongside my wife's clothes, including her black lace crotchless Victoria's Secret panties. She had purchased them 2 months ago and even showed them to me. I was instantly aroused and encouraged her to try them on, but she refused, stating they were reserved for special occasions. She never wore them, which disappointed me because I felt our 25th wedding anniversary would be the ideal occasion. What could be more exceptional than that? I wonder, maybe it's my birthday. That was 2 days ago. These days, I could barely focus on my work because of the constant groaning of the bed springs and the constant thumping of the headboard against the wall. Uncertain of how much time I had, I listened to the noises emanating from what used to be my bedroom, a place I vowed never to enter again. It was evident that this was not their first encounter, as I could hear among other things, my loving wife's words, "Damn it, baby, we need to find a way to increase our time together to 2 or 3 times a week instead of once in a while." How did I find myself in the midst of the nightmare? It was a foolish mistake. I had gone to work and left my briefcase behind. Well, to be precise, I had left it in the garage when I placed it there to rescue the cat from under the hood of my car, only to forget about the briefcase entirely. Tabby was our second cat, and many years ago, on a cold winter morning, I neglected to tap on the hood before starting the car, resulting in the tragic end of Clarence, our first cat. The memory of the sound a cat makes when entangled in a fan belt spinning at a rapid 1,000 revolutions per minute, along with the sight of fur flying everywhere, still haunts me. Neither Clarence nor I possess the necessary intelligence. The briefcase wasn't particularly significant, so I hadn't intended to leave it behind. However, I had an appointment with a client who drove me straight to my house. As I turned onto my street, my heart sank at the sight of a black and white police car parked in front of the entrance. I received the impression that my loving wife had suffered a terrible blow. It was like having a knife stabbed through my heart. I hurried into the house, almost missing my wife's brand new silver Lexus LS automobile in the driveway, without even thinking to latch the car door. Sadly, her garden gnome, made of plaster, did not have the same luck. So here I am now, sitting and sipping my coffee, reflecting on the series of events that led me to this moment. It was an incredibly unpleasant experience, one that I had never encountered before. Instead of coffee, I had a strong desire for whiskey. However, I made the conscious decision to maintain a clear mind. I must admit, their passionate cries were incredibly unsettling, and witnessing the act was even worse. Nevertheless, I had to witness it if only to capture the necessary video and audio evidence. Surprisingly, The most disturbing aspect was not seeing them engage in intimate activity on my bed. It was the verbal humiliation inflicted upon me by my own wife. The explicit comparisons and demeaning remarks she made were truly unpleasant to endure. It was disheartening to hear her express that her lover was superior to me in every way. If she desired more, she should not have married me in the first place. Discovering that my wife had cheated on me with her lover in our marital bed was a shocking revelation. Yes, they had engaged in intimate acts on my side of the bed. My wife, breathless with excitement, wrote him in a manner that pleased her, openly expressing her pleasure. Part of me struggled to believe what I was witnessing, even though the evidence was undeniable. My wife, at the age of 50, had chosen a lover who couldn't have been older than 30. He was in exceptional physical shape, unlike myself. While I may not have been the epitome of masculinity, couldn't a despicable person have pursued someone else's wife who was in better shape? I failed to comprehend his choices. The ordeal seemed to last an eternity, but after approximately 90 minutes, silence fell upon the house. They had to have stopped. "Do you have any coffee?" Audrey asked her lover, but her boyfriend said nothing. "Stallion, your service weapon, your boss took it with him when he departed," I informed him. "He was a compassionate man." I watched as he began to fade away right before my eyes, despair trembling on his lips as he fell to his knees. The sheet slipping from his grasp, he frantically rummaged through the scattered pile on the floor, searching for something specific. "He took that as well," I said, as he continued to search. "I believe he referred to it as your throwing weapon, if I'm not mistaken." What troubled him the most was the fact that the serial number had been removed. It seemed like a significant loss for this former officer, perhaps costing him around 5 to 7 years. Stud, John's shoulders slouched in response to this revelation. As I mentioned earlier, he was a caring individual. While the two of you were occupied upstairs, he and I engaged in a pleasant conversation. Stud quickly glanced out the window onto the street. "Yes, he also took a patrol car. Your boss mentioned that you were responsible for ensuring safety at a construction site. He contemplated taking your uniform as well but thought you might need it when you eventually depart from here." But where was I? After Sergeant Marks obtained his video footage of both of you and confiscated your weapons, he noticed my Smith & Wesson and asked, "Is this your weapon?" I confirmed, "It is." "Is it licensed?" he inquired again. I affirmed, "It is." "Do you know how to operate it?" he questioned once more. I replied in the affirmative. "Are you planning to use it on either of them?" he warned, emphasizing the consequences of civilians resorting to violence, even if it may seem justified. As law enforcement officers, we possess the privilege of using force, but civilians do not. I assured him that unless the individual possessed a third weapon unknown to us, no one would be shot. Your boss nodded in approval and made his way towards the exit, remarking, "Oh, do me a favor and inform Officer Johnson not to come to the station. We will contact him when we require it." "Do you happen to have a third gun?" I inquired. To which he shook his head in the negative. My query was more rhetorical, intended to underscore a point rather than to elicit a genuine response. I wasn't genuinely contemplating aiming at any of them. Rather, I gestured in their direction while continuing with my narrative. "Perhaps you could call your wife to provide transportation home," I suggested, though I anticipated a negative response. Predictably, he relayed that his wife was too distressed by a video I had emailed her, depicting him and Audrey in my bedroom. She communicated incoherently but was distressed about her father, the police chief, and the effect on their kids. They came from what appeared to be a reputable family, which only added to the misery of their current situation. Even with the seriousness of the situation, I was entertained by what was happening. It felt akin to reeling in a fish and toying with it before letting it go. I toyed with the notion of asking my wife to provide transportation, but her car had been seized by the police due to the discovery of unaccounted for cannabis in the vehicle. Audrey's initial shock and outcry were replaced by a despondent resignation upon learning of the car's impoundment. As the officer departed, donning his uniform, my wife found her voice once more, pleading with me and professing her love. I reassured her, recognizing the misunderstanding that had led to my earlier outburst. Her confession regarding her love for me assuaged any lingering doubts. Her demeanor, previously characterized by shock, now shifted to one of nervous attentiveness, hanging on my every word. "I deeply apologize, but when I believed that your love for me had faded, I made the decision to share the video with our children," I said. "My intention was for them to become acquainted with their future stepfather. However, it seems that they have had a negative reaction to it for some reason. I had anticipated that they would be happy for you. This situation demonstrates the extent of my actions." "Oh my, you didn't do that," she gasped. I simply nodded in response. I neglected to mention one more detail. Although you may already be aware of it, your lover, spouse happens to work in the same company as you. I believe she mentioned that she holds the position of executive assistant to the CEO. Please do not worry, I assured her. I have informed her that she should not terminate your employment even if they decide to relocate you to Little Rock. During my conversation with the lawyer, she informed me that due to your higher income, you will be required to provide child support for several years. She estimated the amount to be around $3,000 per month. I understand that many betrayed husbands refuse to accept this responsibility as they strive to maintain their macho image. However, I will not be following that path. Instead, I plan to take some time off from work and embark on an extended fishing vacation to cope with my pain. As the saying goes, deep sea señorita fishing in the Gulf of Mexico. I must admit, I am unsure why the lawyer requested your photograph. She mentioned that it was for her father's benefit, perhaps to be distributed among the authorities in case they wish to initiate any form of harassment. Alternatively, it could have been to determine if any of them still held an interest in dating you. Nevertheless, I provided her with a photo that clearly showcases your expertise in a certain area. Additionally, I sent a copy of the video to your parents, as well as your colleagues. "How could you have been so heartless towards me, Evan?" she cried. "Oh dear, I wasn't being cruel. I simply wanted to ensure that everyone was aware of your new partner." At this point, all your friends on Facebook appeared to be pleased for you. Audrey displayed minimal reaction. She simply remained seated on the floor, wrapped in her sheet, sobbing, shaking her head, and muttering, "This can't be happening to me." "All right, my dear, it is time for you to get dressed and prepare your belongings. Your parents should be arriving soon to pick you up," I gently guided her towards the realization. "I would be delighted if you could accompany me. However, it is imperative that you find suitable accommodation for the night. I have been informed that they are willing to provide you with temporary lodging. Unfortunately, due to the divorce proceedings, the house will have to be sold." I mentioned this after her divorce was finalized. "It appears that you have some inquiries, my dear. I must admit, this comes as a surprise to me. What do you believe should occur once I become aware? Frankly, I never anticipated that you would be caught. Shall we continue this fruitless conversation?" There was a brief silence upstairs for a few minutes. She remained silent, save for the occasional wails and sobs. Why is it that cheaters always cry when they are caught? This is an utterly dreadful situation. If being caught is so unpleasant, then, for heaven's sake, refrain from cheating. Approximately 10 minutes later, she descended the stairs dressed but without a suitcase. "Evan, we really have to." I heard her parents' car arrive at our house at that same moment. "Audrey, goodbye. You're a gentleman all the time," I extended the door to let her in.